Shadow work is one of the most important practices that you can use to clear up your energy and heal dysfunctions and old patterns in your life. And there's something that's happened recently that has made shadow work much easier to do than ever before. And I can't wait to tell you about it! In this video, you'll learn what shadow work actually is, why now is the best time to do shadow work than ever before, and then we'll finish the video off with one simple practice that's going to help you do shadow work quickly and effectively. Coming up! Hello, beautiful soul. That intro that you just saw is for my brand new YouTube live event that's going to be happening on October 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The live event is called the 2021 Energy Upgrade for Lightworkers, and I'm super excited if you can join us. In this live event, we're going to go into the current energies on the planet and what's going on behind the scenes, why light workers are so important right now and how they're being affected by this energy, how to work with this new energy instead of against it. Then we're going to go into some live Q&A, and then after the live Q&A, something exciting is going to happen. We're going to have our very own sound healing session with the beautiful musician Nuno Pereira, and we're also going to have a live activation where I'm going to guide light workers on an energy upgrade. I can't wait to see you guys there. If you're interested in this YouTube live event, it's going to be a mega event. Click on the link below to download the workbook and also to register for the event. And I hope to see you on October 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On to part one of the video, what's shadow work? So before we answer the question of what shadow work is, let's take a step back and let's define what the shadow is, all right? So a lot of times when we talk about the shadow, people get a little bit scared because they think that it's something evil or that it's something that's bad, and it's not, all right? So the shadow, simply defined, is the shadow is all parts of you that you don't see, acknowledge, or accept in yourself, okay? That's simply what the shadow means. All parts of you that you don't see, that you basically don't see. And so what ends up happening is that energy ends up sort of being repressed or kind of pushed away to the side, and that's what's meant by the shadow. Now, the shadow, although it's all parts of you that you don't see and acknowledge, it doesn't mean that these parts don't affect you. They heavily affect you, and that's why the shadow can be so problematic. Because whatever you don't see and accept in yourself, those things are still affecting your life, sometimes very negatively. So what the shadow ends up doing is the shadow creates a dead weight energetically. I love to refer to the shadow this way. Okay, so when you think about the shadow as being this huge, just dead weight on your shoulders that you don't even know you're carrying, but you are, and it heavily affects you. Now, because the shadow creates this dead weight around your energy system, you can see how heavily it affects your life. And it ends up creating all kinds of uncomfortable, or can create all kinds of uncomfortable situations in your life, and a lot of pain that the shadow can attract to you. But the good news here is that shadow work, then, all it is shadow work is you being able to see and accept and acknowledge all parts of you. That's literally what shadow work means. Shadow work is absolutely crucial for you to evolve spiritually and for your energy to ascend. Because when you're doing shadow work, in other words, when you're seeing, when you're acknowledging, when you're accepting all parts of you, what ends up happening is you send light to all of those parts of the shadow, and when you send light to the shadow ceases to exist, okay? So the shadow starts to get smaller, all right? And so shadow work is essentially this. It's you having the awareness to see more of yourself than you ever have before. Another way of thinking of shadow work is that shadow work is really about integration, okay? So when I do shadow work, really what I'm doing is I am integrating more parts of myself back into the whole, all right? So I love to use the word integration when it has to do with shadow work. But at the end of the day, energetically, a good metaphor, a good image for you to have of shadow work is that when you're doing shadow work, you're literally sending the light of your awareness, your conscious awareness, to parts of you that were unacknowledged before. So the metaphor here, the image that I love to use is that of a dark room. You know, when you enter a dark room, it's all dark, you can't see anything, but as soon as you click the light switch on and the light goes on in the room, suddenly the darkness is gone. Okay, so the shadow really is just an absence of awareness. That's why it's dark, not because it's evil or anything like that. When I'm doing shadow work, literally what I'm doing is I'm clicking the light on, I'm sending light to the parts of me that weren't lit up before. And as I do that, my shadow gets smaller and smaller because more light is reaching it. So the darkness starts to disappear, the shadow gets smaller. As the shadow gets smaller, this is the ding ding, as the shadow gets smaller, it also stops affecting your life as much, okay? So this really, really affects your energy. The more that you work with your shadow, the smaller it gets. The smaller your shadow gets, the less negatively it impacts your life. And here's another way to look at the shadow energetically that really, hopefully, let this integrate into your system. And that is that the smaller your shadow, the higher your energy. Okay, so the smaller your shadow, the higher your energy. Another way of saying this is that the more I am willing to see and accept all parts of me, my shadow is going to be really small. And the smaller that my shadow is, the more my energy ascends because I won't have any more dead weight that I'm carrying. On to part 2 of the video, why now? So why is this the best time to do shadow work? Like, what's going on here? And the answer to this question is that it all has to do with the energy. Okay, so the energy on the planet is extremely accelerated right now, which means that it's vibrating very fast. Okay, whenever you have a lot of vibration shaking, the more that the energy shakes, the higher that it vibrates, the more it brings up things to the surface to be healed. Okay, so you can think of this kind of like a tank of water. So imagine a tank of water that's been sitting for a really long time without moving. Okay, if you have a tank of water that's been still for a really long time, all the dirt and all the sediment, it starts to settle down at the bottom. And you look at that tank of water and on the surface, it seems like it's crystal clear. But then what if I come over and I shake that tank? As soon as I shake that tank, all the sediment and all the dirt that's been sitting at the bottom, it comes up, all right? And that's exactly what is happening in this energy. The more accelerated the energy is, the more that it's vibrating, the more it's kicking up sediment for you to heal and dissolve. Now, the good news here is that this is amazing because all of this stuff is coming up, which means that it makes shadow work easier for you because the energy is helping. The flip side of that is it can be a little bit challenging in these intensified energies. Whenever the energy is intense like this, everything comes up, and sometimes it comes up with a lot of intensity, and sometimes we don't feel prepared to deal with the energy that's being shaken by this beautiful new frequency on the planet. But that's essentially what's happening energetically. The energy is getting faster and faster and faster on the planet. The faster it gets, the more it's going to kick things up in your system. Now, how does this energy shift play into shadow work? What's happening here is that there's a shift in the way shadow work is being done or can be done. So in past energies, shadow work was a little bit more tedious and required a lot more awareness on our part because what was happening was our shadow was being triggered by outside events. Okay, so we didn't even know we had a shadow. We didn't know there were parts of us that were left unseen. And so what would happen in this dance of the universe would send experiences our way that would trigger the shadow. And then if I had enough awareness to realize that that was my shadow, I'd work through it on the spot after being triggered from the outside environment. But what's happening now in this new energy is something really, really cool and very different, okay? What's happening now is that your shadow is not being triggered by anything on the outside. It's being triggered from within. It's coming up from within without any triggering from the outside. And this is amazing because what's happening, this is called spontaneous surfacing, all right? I call this spontaneous surfacing. And that is, we don't need any outside event to trigger us anymore because the energy on the planet itself is helping us. It's kicking the dirt up all by itself without us needing any external circumstance to trigger. And that's what I call spontaneous surfacing of the shadow. So let's give an example. Let's give two examples of how this looks different, all right? So in previous energies, I would need to be triggered by the outside in order for me even to have a chance of recognizing that I have had a shadow. So for example, let's say I had a partner and we went to a party, and let's say jealousy was a part of my shadow, but I didn't know it was there because it's unacknowledged, right? It's a part of my shadow. I don't see it. And I go to a party with my partner and suddenly I see my partner talking to a really attractive person. And just seeing that, I get triggered into jealousy, okay? You see what's happening here? Something on the outside has triggered a specific facet of my shadow called jealousy that I wasn't aware of before. So jealousy comes up. If I have the awareness at the moment to realize that that's my shadow coming up, I work with it, I clear it up, and then that is no longer a part of my shadow. It's been merged and integrated. All right. That's how we used to do shadow work mostly in past energies. Right now, what's happening is something really cool. I could be literally at home washing dishes, doing nothing in particular, and boom, the spontaneous surfacing can come up. And I could literally start to have my shadow come up without any trigger whatsoever from the outside. All right. It just spontaneously comes up. This is a totally different way of doing shadow work. This is a totally different way of processing the shadow. And this is something that's happening more and more, and it's going to continue to happen more and more as the energies intensify and as we evolve in our own consciousness. Now, this spontaneous surfacing of the shadow is occurring really for two main reasons why this is now a new feature of the energy. One of them is, we've already talked about it, which is the acceleration of the energy on the planet. Okay, so the energy is accelerating, it's vibrating faster, and that's just helping the shadow. It's helping to kick up the shadow a lot more easily than we did in previous energy that vibrated more slowly. Okay, so that's one reason. But the second reason why spontaneous surfacing is a feature now of shadow work is because we're ready. We are at a higher level of consciousness. We're evolving. And so if we evolve and we're at a higher level of consciousness, a being that's at a higher level of consciousness no longer needs to be triggered by the outside environment in order to see something within them, right? The higher your level of consciousness, the more you have awareness, self-awareness, introspection, the more you can look within and work with the energy coming up without being triggered from the outside environment. And so these are the two reasons why spontaneous surfacing is happening right now, and it's going to continue to happen because we're ready for it. And that's super exciting. Now to the million-dollar question, and that is, how do I know that my shadow is spontaneously surfacing? I'm not being triggered from the outside, so how the heck am I going to know that my shadow is coming up spontaneously? There is one easy way that you can use to notice whether this spontaneous surfacing is happening. And it's a combination of two things, all right? So remember these two things. The combination of the two things is remembrance plus emotional charge, okay? So you're going to remember something and there's going to be an emotion attached to it. What this means is that you can be, for instance, washing dishes and just doing nothing. You're not being triggered from the outside. You're just washing dishes, and suddenly you remember something, or a past event comes up in your memory. It just comes up in your mind, and there's an emotional charge associated with it. That is the easiest way to spot that your shadow is surfacing spontaneously, is by the combination of memory, remembering an event spontaneously, and having an emotional charge associated with it, okay? Now, if this has happened to you or if it's happening to you, what do you do then? What do you do after you notice that there's an aspect of your shadow coming up to be seen and acknowledged and accepted? Because remember, that's really all shadow work is. It's seeing, accepting, and acknowledging all parts of me, all right? That's the integration work of shadow. And so what do I do now that I know that it's remembrance plus emotional charge? What do I do with that once that shadow aspect comes up? And that takes us to part 3 of the video, which is one simple practice that I'm going to share with you on how to do shadow work in a very quick way in this new energy. So as soon as your shadow aspect is coming up spontaneously, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be aware of it, all right? You're going to be aware that that's a shadow aspect. Just the awareness right there that there's a shadow aspect coming up to be healed is like 85% of the healing work already, okay? And then what you're going to do is you are going to use a mantra that I love to use, okay? Here's the mantra. The mantra that you're going to use as soon as the shadow aspect comes up is you're going to use a variation of this mantra or this exact mantra you could write down. And the mantra is, I allow the fullness of this to surface now, okay? And what I mean by this is whatever shadow aspect is coming up for you, okay? I allow the fullness of this to come up now, okay? Or to surface now. This is a great, great mantra because what you're doing is you're opening up your energy for that shadow aspect to come up instead of pushing it down. Remember, something is in your shadow only because it's not acknowledged. So it's probably been repressed or ignored for a really long time. As soon as I use this mantra, what I'm saying is I'm effectively opening my energy and I'm saying that there's nothing inside of me that I'm unwilling to see. I am willing to see everything inside of me. And that's what this mantra is doing. It's opening up your energy so the fullness of that particular shadow aspect that you're working with, the fullness of that shadow aspect is going to come up to be healed fully. All right. Once you do that, I like to have a journal with me at all times when this happens. Go sit down, close your eyes, come into a meditative place, and you're going to start to follow that energy, all right? Wherever it takes you, just like a breadcrumb trail takes you along the forest, okay? You're going to follow the energy. Once you say that opening mantra, I allow the fullness of this to surface now. You can repeat it multiple times if you want to. You're just going to sit there and you're going to let that energy come up, come up, come up, and you're going to follow it, all right? And this is where the journal comes in handy because what you can do is you could start writing questions, okay? So for example, here's a great question you could write in your journal. Where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this? You could write down a bunch of different questions related to that memory or that emotion that's coming up. You could write a bunch of different questions, and then as you're answering them, you're letting yourself go into the energy deeper and deeper and deeper, just like a breadcrumb trail that's going to take you to the initial wound, to the deepest part of that shadow aspect that was unacknowledged. Okay. And then you're going to write notes. You're going to ask a question, then you're going to sit, you're going to go deeper, and then you're going to write notes because the answers to those questions are going to come up spontaneously. They're going to come up very, very easily if you just sit in this open energy, allowing the shadow aspect to come up. You're going to start to feel different aspects of it. You're going to write them down, journal, journal, journal. Okay. The more you journal and you write through what's happening, the more easily you can process through these shadow aspects as they're coming up. Now, as you're asking these questions in your journal, notice that you're not asking these questions to be answered by the mind, okay? When you ask these questions, for example, if you ask the question, why am I feeling this way? Okay, if you ask the question, why am I feeling this way? You're not going to answer with your head. You're going to take a nice deep breath and you're going to feel more deeply into it. Do you see where I'm guiding you? It's not up here. It's down in the body. The shadow resides usually very deep in the body. So you're just opening your energy to feel more deeply into the shadow. And then you write about it. Maybe some answers come up spontaneously and you write about it. Then you read it back to yourself. The more that you do this work, the more that you feel deeply into certain aspects of your shadow. Another way of saying this is that feeling deeply is the equivalent of sending light into your shadow. Okay? As soon as you send light into your shadow, as soon as you send understanding into your shadow, it's not shadow anymore. It lights up. Okay? And so your shadow gets smaller and smaller. This literally is the integration work of shadow. And this can seem like a really simple practice, but this is a highly effective practice. And this is a practice that can take you a little while to master because you have to be willing to open yourself up to such a degree that you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the energy until you get to the bottom of the pit on this one. Okay? So this is an amazing, amazing practice. Very simple, but extremely effective. Now, if you want to go deeper into shadow work, if you want to go into different practices, if you want to go deeper into the understanding of what the shadow is and what shadow work is, I shot another video, a longer video on that topic. I'm going to leave links in the description box below so you can watch that video after this one. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below if you are feeling your shadow coming up lately. I want to hear all about it. Click here to subscribe to my YouTube channel or head over to my website where you could register for my upcoming YouTube live event. It's going to be amazing. And don't forget this video here about shadow work also. This is going to be great for you to continue viewing. All right, beautiful soul. I love you. I'm out.